Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Ladd versus Dumont. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card that I'll be predicting. So in our first fight, we have in the women's strawweight division, Ariane Carnelossi versus Estela Nunes. And how I see this one right here, so Nunes will have a little bit of height, a little bit of reach. But I feel like she's a little bit raw, to be honest. I feel like she got some pretty decent striking, but it's like she just a little bit off the mark on some of her, power shots or like the ends of her combination. Like she's a little bit off from what I've seen from her. And now she's been inactive for like 2 to 3 years, so I don't know if she's been getting better. But hopefully, as a young fighter, she is getting better, and you can expect she'll get better. But I'm not expecting her to get a whole lot better, and I still see an issue with her grappling from some of her fights. In her fights where she got kind of a gifted decision, and I think the fight she was controlled in large portion of that fight. I think they were scoring shots that she wasn't even landing, and combinations that were hitting air, just off the sound of her grunts, but they were missing. And she was getting taken out of control. That fight and really wasn't landing nothing effective or with power, or to that great of a volume she was landing. She was drawing, not landing a whole lot, not landing a whole lot of power, getting control. Then one fight she got control and then submitted. I see an issue with her takedown defense, issue with her grappling to an extent. Not necessarily poor grappling, but definitely nothing. Definitely you will want to see it get better if she's coming into the UFC. And I feel like Carnelossi will have a clear grappling advantage over Nunes. And I feel like Nunes is, like I said, she's not a power striker, that's for one. She's a little bit off the mark, so she's not as accurate as you would want her to be. And in general, she's not a super high-level striker, so I can't really rate her too much. I'm going to rate Carnelossi's experience. I'm going to rate Carnelossi's activity. I'm going to rate Carnelossi's strength. And I'm going to rate her grappling. So experience, grappling, power. And I feel like that hole in Nunes' game is still going to be there. I feel like Carnelossi going to be able to take advantage of that. Be a mix up on the feet, get the takedown, mix on the feet just enough to score the takedown and control her for the large portion of the fight and get a decision victory. So in this fight, I have Ariane Carnelossi via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, Brandon Davis versus Dana Batgerel. And when I look at this fight between Davis versus Batgerel, Brandon Davis seems like he is the more well-rounded fighter. I think definitely he could look to take it to more places, but I don't rate his wrestling all that high. This is also a man who got taken down with like at least 5+ times in multiple fights. I think he got taken down 10 times by forgetting his name right now, but it loses me. But he got taken down and almost had it for a second there. But I'm not gonna pause the video without. If it comes to me, it comes to me. But it don't. But oh yeah, Enrique Barzola, pretty solid fighter, pretty solid wrestler, at least for MMA wise, but solid enough wrestler. But to get taken down 10 times by anyone is not a good look. I think Zabit took him down like 7 times or something like that. So he got taken down a lot of times in these fights. So his wrestling defense itself isn't that good. His offensive wrestling hasn't really looked all that great in fights either. I guess except like an opponent who was kind of budding at the time, he took advantage of him on the ground and had, a budding fighter who had less experience than him. And then also Chikaze, he had some decent takedown success against Chikaze, but even still, he got picked apart on the feet. So I really don't feel like his takedown offense, I would rate it all that high. And I feel like that's where he's going to be looking to, get that other edge. And on the feet, I don't feel like he's that far behind Batgerel, but I feel like Batgerel's going to be landing the heavier shots. I feel like Davis is going to be landing the volume, but Batgerel's going to be landing the harder shots, the more telling shots, and he's going to be controlling the center of the ring with his power and having Davis on the back foot, not landing too effectively, not landing in such volume that it's like he's landing 2-1 or 3-1, nothing crazy like that, maybe about 4 or 5 strikes more by the time, the fight got to get stopped or goes to a decision. I'm predicting a decision victory for Batgerel. Probably stuffing a lot of Davis' takedowns, and Davis not having great success with his takedowns, also with the control either. So maybe like a minute total control time, but not a whole lot. And that's throughout the whole fight, not just around. The whole fight probably average, probably going to end up having like a total of sub 2 minutes of control time at most. So probably like 1 minute to 2 minutes at most, I'm assuming. And that's like Batgerel will be landing the heavier, more significant shots and controlling the center of the octagon. And for that reason, he's going to win a close decision over Brandon Davis. So in this fight, I have Dana Batgerel via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the featherweight division, Klein versus Nate Landwehr. And how I see this fight right here. So Landwehr, I'm going to say it every single time I predict a fight with him, win or lose, what I'm predicting him to win. I'm not going to say my record for, well, I am going to say, I think I lost the very first fight picking him against Herbert Burns. And I picked him against I picked him against Julian Rosa and against the damaged Darren Elkins, I picked him. So I'm 2-1 with picks against Landwehr. And I feel even prior, I had a decent read on him. And I still to this day think I have a decent read. And I feel like that record's only going to go up as long as he's in the UFC as far as my prediction record. Not his record, but my prediction record in fights involving him. But either when I look at this guy, I see a guy who definitely is not a great striker, especially defensively. But he has a skill set. It's MMA. You're going to have a lot of, styles make fights because you got grapplers that people are one-dimensional grapplers. You got, and that's a lot of MMA fighters that they just have they're grapplers that are trying to be strikers, but they have such big holes in their striking. So a guy like Landwehr who has big holes in his striking as well, just because he got, decent wrestling, decent takedown defense, he could beat these submission grapplers that maybe some of these better strikers would get submitted by, and he could get them into striking match like these sloppy war, stand and bang striking matchups, and he could outstrike them. But now he's going against Klein, a fighter who has solid takedown defense, ever improving takedown offense. So I feel like he should be able to keep the fight on the feet. Then on the feet, Landwehr just exposed everywhere. His chin's always up, hands always low. He was getting cracked by Darren Elkins. If Darren Elkins had any bit of power like that, Darren Elkins does got a little bit of power, but nothing respectable, to be honest. Minimum respect. I ain't saying he got marshmallows in his gloves, but Darren Elkins ain't necessarily a hard hitter. He's a cardio pace pusher, drown you type fighter. By the way, if Darren Elkins had some respectable power, he would have knocked him out several times in that fight. Landwehr is open all day, chin up, open all day. I think Klein is going to pick him apart on the feet and not have any issue landing clean on him. Probably catch him with that big head kick at some point that he always catches people with. Because Landwehr ain't going to be avoiding even no type of punches. His chin going to be there on a beam pole, on a stick, on a swivel, just where you hit all day long. And Klein going to take full advantage of that and knock him out in the first round. So in this fight, I have Klein via first round TKO. Now on to our next fight, we have in the women's flyweight division, Lupita Godinez versus Luana Carolina. So Godinez is making a quick turnaround, taking this fight on short notice. It's Sajara Eubanks that stepped out of the fight with, I think, COVID or something, but don't quote me on that, by the way. Eubanks out, Godinez in, and what is like 2 weeks notice? This is her second fight in like 2 weeks. She just came off that real impressive performance. Now she's coming here against Luana Carolina. And how I see this one between these two, I feel like Luana Carolina will have a good length on her. She has some pretty decent striking, but nothing to write home about. Not a really great power either. And I feel like Lupita Godinez is just a more fleshed out, better fighter. I think she's faster. I think she's snappier with her punches. I think she's more aggressive. I think she's the better grappler out there. So I feel like, again, she's going to dictate the pace of this fight and look to get another finish. I think she's going to go out there, be aggressive, crowd her space of Luana Carolina, cover that distance, tag her, look to level change, scoop her, drag her to the ground, and then dominate her on the ground. And I see her getting a first round submission. So I just see her cover that distance, closing that gap, tagging her, level change, scoop, pick her up, or drag her to the ground, ground and pound, then tap her out in that first round. So in this fight, I have Lupita Godinez via first round submission. Now to our next fight, we have in the welterweight division, Danny Roberts versus Ramazan Emeev. And how I see this fight between these two is, I got my little bit of questions for Emeev. And I actually have this as a lock, and I'm probably going to remain it as a lock just because Roberts just not that guy that's going to show through. He's already been in the UFC this long, and if he's going to do something, he would do it now. Even still, he might be at a part of victory. I'm not saying this is a sealed lock. This doorway, the key is so easy of a pick, but it's lock enough that I feel like confident enough that Emeev is pretty good, comfortable money to put on against Roberts, because Roberts, for one, is not a super great finisher historically. Does have a weakness to pressure. Does have some type of deficiency against wrestlers and grapplers. But one thing I will say for him in this fight is that Emeev did struggle with Stosy, who is just not really UFC caliber. And he didn't struggle with Stosy, but he made Stosy look decent. He definitely struggled with Zawada, who Robert struggled with but beat. So, and also Emeev does have issues checking leg kicks. Like, he doesn't check leg kicks. And if he can't keep the fight on feet, it should be Robert's fight. I don't know, some people like to say, oh, Emeev is a good striker. He's world-class this, he's world-class that. But let's just be honest. Emeev is not a world-class striker. His friends could tell him that. His fans could tell him that. His fanboys could tell him that. Cappers who in love with this man could tell him that. But the man in reality, he's not a world-class striker. He's not. He's barely, I'm not about to dog him like that, but all I'm gonna say, he's not a world-class striker. He ain't that. Solid world-class Sambo practitioner, but pure striking ain't much to write about. But going against Roberts, I feel like with that pressure and the threat of wrestling, whether he uses it or not, will constantly be in the back of Roberts' mind. And he's always gonna be waiting to take down or waiting to clinch. That's going to freeze him up a bit, make his offense slow down a bit. I definitely think he's going to try to land some of those leg kicks, but I feel like Emeev's going to try to catch them, score takedowns. Like, catch the kicks, score takedowns, ground out the clock, pressure him, hold him against his cage. That's what's going to be the pace. I mean, the story of the fight. Cage control, catching leg kicks, and scoring takedowns off them, and grinding Roberts out to a pretty safe decision. I don't see no spectacular knockout, no spectacular pace, no spectacular domination. I just see a hug fest, pretty much. Hug fest and pressure fest, and constantly been up underneath Roberts and beating him to a decision. So in this fight, I had Ramazan Emeev via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in our prelim headliner in the middleweight division, Andrew Sanchez versus Bruno Silva. And how I see this fight right here. So Andrew Sanchez has a very good shot to win this one. He has a very good shot to win this one. Bruno Silva's wrestling defense can be questionable at times. Grappling defense can be pretty questionable at times. I don't think he's really been submitted all that many times, if any. I'm not going to really fact check that right now, but I know he's not a guy that's submission, such a known submission risk. Like, oh, you going against a guy, or he's been submitted like by armbar like 2-3 times, triangle by like 6 times. Yeah, like Chael Sonnen or something. Like, it's not like that's the case, but he definitely, I see him susceptibility to being taken down and controlled, probably and grind out to a decision. That's a possibility for Sanchez to pull off a victory. So I'm also saying that Sanchez is the better striker, but let's be honest, you getting a little bit too trigger happy. You're getting a little bit too jittery right there if you're saying Sanchez is a better striker than Bruno Silva. He knocked out Wellington Thurman on the feet. Woohoo. Wellington Thurman ain't really a striker. Bruno Silva had to struggle with a little bit of a struggle with Wellington Thurman on the ground, but eventually knocked him out on the ground. But whatever the case may be. If that's Andrew Sanchez's one fight where he looked good on his feet, the man not really no great striker. In the last fight, he got knocked out by Makhmud Muradov. I'm not saying Muradov's a bad fighter, but either way, Sanchez ain't no great striker. Vettori picked him apart too. I'm not saying Vittori's a bad striker, but when they gonna say Vettori ain't no world-class striker himself, but either way, it's like it was two grapplers who started working on their striking, and Vettori is just the better package at that point and at this point. And all of a sudden, not even putting Vettori in this equation, but with Andrew Sanchez just flat out, I feel like he does have the path where he could potentially try to wrestle, but I don't feel like he has had cardio issues in the past. He has been chinny in the past, and he's definitely been very hittable at all points in his career, even to this day. This man is very hittable. And going with a guy like Bruno Silva who hits that hard, I can see Andrew Sanchez having early success in this fight with his wrestling, but I can't see him doing that for 3 rounds. I can't see him materializing a TKO stoppage or a submission stoppage. But I can see him having success maybe early through the first round, maybe a large portion of that second round, but I can't see him doing that all the way through 3 rounds. Like I said, the man's too hittable and he's chinny. And he's going in there with one of the hardest hitters pound for pound in MMA. This man, Bruno Silva, hits extremely hard. He might be a little bit unorthodox, but he's actually pretty sharp with his accuracy as far as landing. So when you're that chinny, you're that hittable, you go in there with one of the hardest hitters in MMA at this given point, and who's actually sneakily accurate. That chin's gonna be found, and I feel like Bruno Silva, once he has him hurt or he lands on him, it's gonna be over at that point, or soon to follow be over after he gets connected on. And I feel like it's gonna be like first round good for Sanchez a little bit, or at least survive that first round. In the second round, Bruno Silva's gonna find him, and he's gonna put him out in that second round. So in this fight, I have Bruno Silva via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the women's flyweight division, Manon Fiorot versus Mayra Bueno Silva. And how I see this fight between these two is I actually think Bueno Silva has a pretty decent fighter's chance in this one. Because I'm high on Manon Fiorot, but I already predicted this fight, to be honest. I already picked Manon Fiorot, but it is no going back, and I'm still stuck on who I'm stuck with, Manon Fiorot. But I got to give Mayra Bueno Silva her props, and I got to take some props from Manon Fiorot. She looks good and she looks well-rounded and she does have the skills and whatnot, but she definitely has not fought the best competition. She fought like Victoria Leonardo, or whatever her name is, Victoria Leonardo, who was straight up a can, to be honest, in my opinion. No disrespect to her, in my opinion, I just don't think she's UFC caliber. And she had any real angle in that fight. So she really was just a woman who can't strike, stuck on the feet with a woman who can strike at a pretty high level, and was just made to be put on a highlight reel. Then her last opponent, she fought like a one who probably could really make atom weight and probably be her optimum weight class. But yeah, hey, I don't know. She fought a fighter who just stylistically was the shutout, had no actual angle to win or no path to a victory. Then she fought another chick who had no path to victory, like a small, undersized woman who was like a grappler who couldn't even use that grappling at all, and just got picked apart and bullied out there. Just much bigger than her. Now she's going against Bueno Silva, who has fought some decent competition, actually fought some decent competition, lost to them, beat some, but for some actual respectable competition who actually could get wins in this weight class and has had decent wins and decent outings in this weight class. Bueno Silva might be raw on the feet, but she can definitely crack on the feet. Like, she got some heavy hands and she's not afraid to throw. Just almost in a way like the Raleigh and Paiva fight versus I'm forgetting his name right now, but the fight where Raleigh and Paiva showed up was a big underdog, but came out with like a split decision victory. Maybe it should have been a draw because he got dropped that first round. But again, names are eluding me at this moment, but I'm not going to fact check. I know exactly who I'm talking about. Oh, Kyler Phillips. Yeah. Kyler Phillips fight. Now I picked Kyler Phillips to win that fight. I'm forgetting very much Kyler Phillips versus Raleigh and Paiva energy. She's like the female Raleigh and Paiva. Except I think Raleigh and Paiva's offensive wrestling better. When I look at her record, she has not taken anyone down, so that's a questionable factor for her, where I feel like she probably would have the grappling advantage, but she has a 0% takedown accuracy. Like, she hasn't got no takedowns inside the UFC. Hasn't went for a whole lot, but has got none. So that's an interesting factor against her when she's going against a clearly better, more technical striker. But this is a fight, whether it be pure kickboxing, pure boxing, or whatnot, in a fight, anything can happen. Especially when you're just dealing with hands. Like, all it takes is one shot that you don't see, your lights could be out, or you could get dropped, or you could get headbutted like Kevin Holland and choked out, and then the refs won't overturn it into a no contest. Like, damn, I got headbutted and they ain't turned into a no contest. It is what it is. So just like that, in striking, in combat, especially in striking combat sports, anything can happen. But yeah, again, Myra Bueno Silva her prop. Like, I did feel like she has a jiu-jitsu advantage, and I feel like she has a puncher's chance in this one, a very good one, and she has a chance to bring out the dog and just outfight her, make it a fight and outfight her. Don't make it a technical fight, make it a fight, a dog fight, and outfight her. She has that potential to do that. But I'm gonna favor Manny Fiorot's skills to be able to, stuff the takedown. Silva already has a 0% takedown rate. Keep it at that. Keep on the feet, and just take advantage of a pretty raw and unpolished striker, or she's a grappler, but she has raw and unpolished striking skills. She got some power. She got some decent Muay Thai clinch. But I feel like Manny Fiorot should be able to muscle her around in the clinch, get the advantage there, and on the feet, should be able to land cleaner, sharper shots. I say it's been a pretty exciting fight, but I think Manny Fiorot will be fully in the driver's seat at all points in this fight, and should be able to deal with the wild striking of Silva and the lack of takedown offense, or the low ability in takedowns in wrestling from Silva, and keep it on the feet. And if she does want to go to the ground, it'll go to the ground at her choice, and she should be comfortable enough in position with Silva, especially having Silva on her back. Because even, I'm not saying Montana De La Rosa is a bad wrestler or a bad grappler at any point, but I feel like Fiorot's grappling skills is comparable to Montana De La Rosa, or better. And I feel like she should be comfortable with her in the guard, because in that fight, Montana De La Rosa had like, 7 minutes or 8 minutes of control time, and wasn't really at much of a risk when she was in Silva's guard. But really, the whole point is Silva can't really take her down. Fiorot's a more polished fighter, and that's all you really need to know. I see Manny Fiorot being to beat her to a decision, fight a pretty technical fight. I see Silva having heart, being a dog out there, not giving up, not getting stopped, and battling through all 3 rounds, but being behind, Fiorot being up front, leading the dance, and beating her to a clear decision. So in this fight, I have Manny Fiorot via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the lightweight division, Jim Miller versus Eric Gonzalez. And let's just be honest straight off the bat. You betting on Eric Gonzalez, you betting on Jim Miller being old and just so old that you betting on Eric Gonzalez's youth and potential to actually be decent from where he was in with those Mexican leagues and whatnot, and actually get good or actually get decent, which he isn't or has not proven to be. And you banking on him to be young and improving, and wanting more, I guess, and to catch an old Jim Miller who's not there. So you're really banking on a lot of stuff that just has not been proven. You're betting on, I don't know, you're betting on father time or mother time, however you want to call it, however you want to gender time. But you're betting on that. That's really what you're betting on. When you look at Eric Gonzalez, he lost clearly to Rafa Garcia, lost clearly to Humberto Bondinet, and both those guys aren't exactly studs in the lightweight division. These guys are still probably bottom tier. Matter of fact, they are bottom tier lightweights at this given juncture until proven otherwise. They're bottom tier. Humberto Bondinet had a good bit of fights, and he's just been bottom tier. Rafa Garcia, we only had like 1 or 2 fights. But yeah, showed a decent outing from first fight. Second fight was not decent, but definitely very much bottom tier, 0-2. And Bondinet probably like 1-3 or something. So bottom tier guys just straight out dog walk this man and did whatever they want with him. So Jim Miller just, even at this point, you can even look at who he lost. He only lost some of the best people. At one point, he was on a 3-5 losing streak, like Anthony Pettis, Dustin Poirier, and those guys didn't put him away. So, and I think we also Charles Oliveira lost on that streak. So he lost to some beast. It's not like Jim Miller might be old, he might lose in some fights. And Vince Pichel is very underrated. I'll always say that. So don't say, oh, because he lost Vince Pichel, that has any correlation to him losing to Eric Gonzalez. Who is this man? This man who can't even beat bottom tier lightweights in his respective organization. Come over here now, he's gonna fight Jim Miller. I see Jim Miller just running through this man. I don't see anything this man presents him wrestling wise. Jim Miller can out wrestle him. Jiu-jitsu wise, Jim Miller definitely gonna kill this man. Striking, Jim Miller should kill this man. I think Jim Miller is gonna touch this man up, had his man on the back foot, crack him, force him to either, like, you know, when he get hurt, fall to his face and then snap on the guillotine, or have him reaching for a takedown after getting rocked and on stilts and then jumping on a guillotine and tap him out in that first round. By the way, hurting him, then tap him out in that first round via guillotine. So in this fight, I have Jim Miller via first round submission via guillotine. Add that on there. But now to our next fight, we have in the co-main event, Andrei Arlovski versus Carlos Felipe. This fight is really a tight matchup, more so for Father Time than anything, and also Arlovski's chin. But Arlovski, in reality, over these past couple years, he's not really been a knockout, such an easy knockout for people. Especially with the way he changed his style, and I guess maybe the fact that he's been doing something different, or just really avoiding too much, with his style and maybe some other stuff he's doing. And I think more so it's adjustment in style, because he's not getting hit as flush, and he's not really put himself in position to be hit as flush as much, and also mixing in some wrestling at times and using more footwork. So he really hasn't been a big knockout victim like he was in the past or for a period of his career. So he's been in with some pretty hard hitters. He's been in Walt Harris, been in there with I'm forgetting some names. But yeah, he's been in with some hard hitters. That's all I'm gonna say. And he hasn't really been Augusto Sakai. I feel like he really beat Walt Harris and Augusto Sakai. Then who else did come a loss? Win over. Whatever the case is, man ain't been getting knocked out. And I still feel like he's the far more, matter of fact, he is the far more technical fighter. He's the far older, but he's the far more technical fighter than Carlos Felipe. And Felipe is just, again, another one of these fat heavyweights of this era who is a lazy boy that don't want to do their homework and work on their other skills and just want to come here and be a boxer or be a striker because they can't do nothing in actual striking sports. So they would come in MMA and complain about people. Well, I haven't heard him complain, but they would come over here in MMA and strike, because they know they can't strike with no real boxers. They know they can't strike with no real kickboxers. They'll come to MMA and try to, knock their way out to a title or to some fame, get some knockout bonuses, but never really flesh themselves out as true mixed martial artists. So, are we not really feeling this dude? But going against Arlovski, I feel like Arlovski's going to use his length, use his speed. He's not really that fast at this point. This man like pushing 50, really. But use his length, use his experience, stay long, throw teeps to the knee, throw teep kicks to the body, stepping side kicks, spinning back kicks, maybe spinning back flips every now and then, just keep Felipe off at bay or keep him worried about, trying to rush it on Arlovski when his back is exposed. And just like do his blitz combinations at time and fight, the typical Arlovski fight of this era, this middle-aged Arlovski in his beyond his twilight years Arlovski, just stay agile, stay mobile, and never stay in front of a limited Felipe who's just looking for like body shots, looking for overhands, looking to box and plot for it. So attack those legs, batter those legs up, batter those knees up, come in with blitz, walk him to combinations, walk him to shots, play chess with him, and don't play a brawl with him, and be the more experienced fighter and get his hand raised in a decision. So in this fight, I have Andrei Arlovski via decision. Now to our main event, we have in the women's featherweight division, Normand Dumont versus Aspen Ladd. And how I see this fight right here is Aspen Ladd hasn't fought since 2019. Did not look all that great against Yana Kunitskaya. I watched this fight live. I just like to throw that out there every single time. Every single time I'm about to predict a fight for her. But she seems to keep falling out of fights. But her last win, I was there live, and whether you were there live or not, I just throwing it out there. You could watch the other videos from when I did go there. Just shouting myself out there again, putting a little tidbit on there, putting a little promo on there. I might even throw this in the video, but again, off topic. But Aspen Ladd was losing to Yana Kunitskaya, in my opinion, or fighting a very, very close fight with her up until she caught that stoppage in the third round. But was not looking all that great against Yana Kunitskaya, who I don't rate all that high. In fact, she is a tough woman, but I don't rate her wrestling high. I don't rate her grappling high or nothing like that. And Aspen Ladd, you really supposed to be this woman trying to challenge a Nunes or whatnot, or trying to get avenge a loss of Jermaine Durandeby. That was not the performance that you would say, oh, she's ready for Nunes. She's ready for Jermaine Durand. She's ready for Holly Holm. Those performances did not say that. Or that performance did not say any of that. It just said that she's better than most in the division, but nowhere near the top of the division. She's not, nobody that's anybody in women's MMA is like, oh my God, Aspen Ladd, I got to fight her. Even at 150, she could have a weight advantage, and Weili Zhang would not care about her. Rose Namajunas would not care about her. Jessica Andrade could come all the way back to 135, all 145, and beat this woman. So nobody really worried about Ladd based off her last performance. And really looking back at her other performances, in hindsight, they aren't all the greatest performances. She was running through these old lunch ladies, so it ain't really all that impressive. I've been dogging Aspen Ladd for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes of this video, but while seeing Aspen Ladd, I still see like her striking is pretty raw. She still plows forward, looks for the takedowns, and trying to telegraph her takedowns. But that works for her against a lot of women in this division. But I feel like Dumont has some pretty solid wrestling defense. I feel like Dumont is clearly the better striker, clearly the hardest hitting striker. I feel like she's the more fleshed out fighter, more evolved fighter. And also, I think she's a smarter thinking fighter, given the fact that she's unlike all these other women who got delusions of grandeur, thinking that they could beat Nunes or thinking they should rush to a title shot to fight Nunes because they wouldn't be on the main card or wouldn't be fighting for a title. But none of them are nowhere near ready to fight her. She hasn't said, I think I'm like 2-3 years out from fighting Nunes. So she clearly aware of where she stands and that she got to get a lot better. And do I say she's going to be a real good challenge for Nunes at any point? I'm not really saying that, but I feel like in 2-3 years, she'd be at least better than the other woman that Nunes has fought. It will get another loss. And by that time, Nunes probably retired, but at least it's showing that she has a brain and she knows how to use it, unlike a lot of these other women in MMA, is all I'm saying. So I like her, the way she's thinking. I like her skill set, but I think the only thing I really question for her in this fight is her cardio. I feel like Ladd could come on late and start to take advantage of her, maybe even stop her late, or maybe just outwork her over the course of the fight if she gets tired. In a 5-round fight, this is a 3-round fight, it'd be much easier to lean to Dumont, and I am leaning to Dumont regardless, but in a 3-round fight, it will be really much easier to lean to Dumont because she could probably win the first 2 rounds, then maybe give that 3rd round being tired, and it'd be like an easy decision, similar to the Felicia Spencer fight. But yeah, the 5 rounds and the cardio definitely make it interesting for me. But I feel like Dumont will be in better shape. I feel like in her last 2 fights, she kind of did show questionable cardio. She cut down to 135. That was her reason for having a little bit of questionable pace against Ashley Evans Smith. Then against Felicia Spencer, it was back at 145, but again, you probably freshly off a fight at 135. Now you're fighting a bigger woman who, could take a kitchen sink at her. She fought both Nunes and Sabo for 5 rounds and lasted. And at no point was she ever really out to be stopped at any point against those women. So yeah, very hard to finish Felicia Spencer. Very tough, big tank going at her, and of course that's gonna be fatiguing. You're hitting a woman with all your best shots, and she's not going anywhere. So different fight. And Ladd on the side, definitely not nearly as durable as Felicia Spencer. I'm not saying she's easy to finish, but definitely nowhere near where Felicia Spencer is. No disrespect to Ladd at all in that thing. That's just a big compliment to Felicia Spencer's granite chin. So granite chin. But yeah, that's flat out, I think Dumont's better everywhere. I question her cardio and her pacing, but I feel like she should be able to beat Ladd everywhere. And I feel like I'll say she can at least win the first 2 rounds, then maybe eke out another round within this fight. But I feel like her pacing will eventually start to affect her, but I feel like she'll be confident enough and still be solid enough to, make it through the other rounds. But definitely those later rounds will be tough for her, but I feel like she'll be able to still be in there, keep them close, but win the first 2 rounds probably easily. Well, not easily, but clearly. But the rest of the 3 rounds probably be close just for Dumont's pace slowing. But even with a slowing pace, she still should be able to keep pace with Ladd. Still should be able to make it hard for Ladd to score takedowns. Hard for Ladd landing flush or significant, and still land the harder, more significant shots, even when her pace starts to slow. And I see her beating Ladd via decision. So in this fight, I have Norma Dumont via decision. And that concludes my fight predictions for the 4 card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Ladd versus Dumont. And as always, thanks for watching.